we are going to study about another important topic, that is sex-linked inheritance. We know that the genes carry all the information, and their information is passed from one generation to another. Now, genes for certain traits are present on X and Y chromosomes only. So since these X and Y chromosomes are known as sex chromosome, the inheritance of such traits is called sex-linked inheritance. So these traits will be transferred only with the help of X chromosome or Y chromosomes. Now, apart from the inheritance, we find that there are some genetic disorders. These genetic disorders are as a result of alterations, that means changes in the genes or the chromosome. That means chromosome may be affected, and as a result it causes genetic disorders. Now, when we talk of genetic disorders, these genetic disorders are classified into two types. The first is Mendelian disorder, and the second is chromosomal disorder. Mendelian disorders are all the disorders which are caused due to alteration, that means change, or mutation, sudden difference in the structure of a gene, which is a single gene, that results into the Mendelian disorders. So Mendelian disorders are due to alteration or mutation in a single gene. Whereas chromosomal disorders, these disorders are again inheritable and genetic disorders, and it may be the chromosomal disorder may be due to absence or excess or abnormal arrangement of chromosomes. Now, this sometimes happen, and it is due to various reasons, and these disorders are genetically inherited one after the other generation. Therefore, the name genetic disorders. Now, out of that disorders, we are going to study today hemophilia, which is a Mendelian disorder. Now, there are several other Mendelian disorders. Hemophilia is again important one. Then cystic fibrosis is there, sickle cell anemia, color blindness, phenylketonuria, thalassemia, etc. These are just few Mendelian disorders which we are going to study. So first, the one which we are going to study is hemophilia. Hemophilia is a genetic disorder in which the blood clotting is affected. So when we talk of hemophilia, it is a sex-linked recessive disorder. And this disorder is due to, or we can say that this is actually, it affects the blood clotting. So a person who is affected by hemophilia has excessive bleeding. Normally a blood clotting process takes hardly 1 or 2 minutes to clot the blood. But in the case of a person who is affected by hemophilia, the clotting takes hours, or maybe more than 8 hours to control the clotting, and as a result this affects or is fatal for the patient. So it affects the blood clotting, and it is due to the factors which are affected, that a single gene, factor 9 and factor 8. If factor 8 of a gene is affected, it is known as hemophilia A type. hemophilia A type, and if factor 9 is affected, it is known as hemophilia B type. Now both these type of both the factors, that is factor 8 and factor 9, are present on X chromosome only, and they are absent in Y chromosome. So they are present on X chromosome only, but are absent in Y chromosome. Since this disease, or this is caused by the X chromosome only, it is also called as X-linked disorder. So it is an X-linked disorder and also called as sex-linked recessive disorder. Now, when we study this hemophilia, the pattern of inheritance, we find that it affects females mostly, and it affects males mostly, and females are rarely affected by it. For a female to be hemophilic, she has to have the X chromosome both carrier of hemophilia factor. So unless and until a female acquires both, we are representing hemophilia as XH over here. So for a female to be affected by hemophilia, she has to have both the factors which should be hemophilic. If one of the factor, like one of the parent, it receives hemophilic factor and the other being normal, over here this normal X chromosome will produce sufficient proteins for the clotting, and as a result this type of female will only be a carrier of the disease but is not affected, whereas in such case it is affected. So this condition is very rare, and it will only happen if both the male also is hemophilic and female is a carrier. So the female, the percentage or the ratio of females being affected by hemophilia is very less, whereas we find this disease to be very common in males. Now let us try and understand few crosses what happens. Now suppose the case, let's talk of case 1. Now in this case, suppose a normal female, the genetic composition will be X and X, marries a male who is hemophilic. So for the male to have one X chromosome affected with Y chromosome, this will be an affected male. So the male over here, we write it over here as affected male or hemophilic male. Now in this case, one factor is sufficient enough for the male to be affected, because we know that the factor for hemophilia is present on X chromosome only, whereas factor 8 and 9, which is responsible for the hemophilia, is absent in a Y chromosome. So here X and Y, this is affected male. Now when the gamete formation happens, it will result into two carrier females and 50%, we say 50% carrier female and 50% normal male. Now here you can see the XH factor is coming from the male who is affected or who is hemophilic. Now, since only one of the gene is showing or is the carrier of hemophilic factor, the female is acting only as a carrier because this chromosome X is not mutated. It is a normal gene. It is having a normal gene which is coding for proper clotting factors. As a result, this will be only a carrier female. Let us talk about the second type of example. A carrier girl marries to a normal man. If a carrier girl marries to a normal man, let's find out the progeny. This is carrier female and it is normal male. Now, in such a situation, here, carrier female hemophilic male and normal female and this is normal male. So here we find that since the female is a carrier only, out of that it will cause the progeny will be one will be carrier female, one will be affected male and one normal female and one normal male. Let us study the third situation in which female is a carrier and the male is hemophilic. Now, if this is the condition, then this is one carrier female one normal male, one affected female and one affected male. So here are the three cases where we can track down the genotype and find out the inheritance of a hemophilic or affected male or carrier female. So these are the different types of crosses we have come across. So hemophilia is again a clotting disease and the factor which are responsible for the factors is 8th and 9th factor. It is also referred to as a royal disease. We are calling it as a royal disease because there is some interesting story associated with it. Queen Victoria is hemophilic, she is a carrier, and she is passing this the disease to several generations. So we find, therefore it is known as royal disease, and we find that this disease is inheritable.